Welcome back to another episode of the podcast Circle of Hope. My name is Valerie Hope. I am your host. And this is a conversation about how connections and relationships help us grow and thrive. And so fortunate that I have such an amazing circle of people at the ready who will say yes at a moment's notice to be a part of this podcast. Because today we got David Ooley. David, you and I have known each other for 8 years. I think.
2017. Yeah.
2017. Yes, we were in the same cohort at the Berkeley Executive Coaching Institute where we both got certified as executive coaches back in the day. But here's the thing that's so interesting, and I think I mentioned this to you as we're preparing. You and I haven't actually had a conversation like this in years.
Years.
But you've sparked something for me when you've been posting on LinkedIn. Some of your posts that I've read that have been very thought provoking. I've made some comments, and one of those moments I was just like, I need to have David on the podcast. We need to reconnect. So this is kind of our impromptu reconnection.
No, I loved it. I was excited when I saw your note and your offer to join. So I'm just very excited to be here and connecting with you again.
I am too. Why did you say yes? I mean, we haven't talked in so long. What gave you the courage to just like, okay.
Well, I follow, I mean, obviously we're connected on LinkedIn, and I see as many of your posts as LinkedIn will feed me, because we know that's
Mhm.
a whole game.
Yeah.
So I see what you're working on. I mean, we were like-minded 8 years ago. Tell by your content, we're still like-minded.
Yeah.
Um, there's just an inherent level of trust I have in you, and I hope you have in me, that
Thanks.
it wasn't even a, well, what could go wrong? Like, no, it's like, it's Valerie. It's like, this is easy. So,
Yeah. Well, it was the same for me because I think extending an invitation, and I did have some thoughts. I'm like, we haven't talked in a long time. Are we going to be, is it going to flow? Are we going to be okay? That did cross my mind a couple of times as a
sure.
host, just being responsible.
Yes.
But we just spent the last 20 plus minutes kind of doing a little warm up conversation before we hit record. And I'm so excited because you reminded me of so many of the reasons why I enjoy our conversation so much. And
Oh,
just your frame of the world and the things that you talk about and you also post about for
yeah.
sure. And then I remembered as you were sharing, your wife, I actually coached your wife and your
Yes.
daughter for some
And
time.
my daughter Taylor, yeah, who's
Yeah, Taylor.
thriving down in Tampa today with her husband.
Oh
So,
my gosh, look at that. She was in college when we were meeting. My
yes.
goodness. Wow. So let's just start with like the basics. First of all, we know each other because of this connection through executive coaching. What do you think drew you to that particular community of coaches? Because you've worked in the corporate space for a long time. You have probably been introduced to a lot of different places where you could have gotten coaching certification or built that particular knowledge and skill base. What made you choose Berkeley?
There's a question before that question, which is, why did I even choose to pick up executive coaching?
Sure, let's
Because
start there.
at that time, I was a senior leader at Oracle. My career was just rolling, promotions, doing well. And along those lines, I had one of my best friends, a guy named Richard Chad, went through the executive coaching program at Columbia.
Mm.
And he loved it, and he's the executive coach today, along with the rest of his career. And it got me to thinking about, like, that would be a new experience.
Hmm.
Like, I never even had a thought, like, I see myself being an executive coach one day, but it was this, and I wouldn't have used these words at that time, Valerie, but it's so clear to me now. What I was feeling was, I was successful at Oracle.
Uh-huh.
I had found a rhythm, and I was also in this safe cocoon.
Mm.
Like, I knew how things worked, I knew how it operated, I had the right relationships. There wasn't a lot of risk or turmoil or even like new experiences in it. I could just roll
Mm.
right through it. And and so I'm like, why not go try something different like this? And I started looking online and I mean, Berkeley is 20 minutes from my house. I wasn't
Yeah.
going to go to Columbia. And I'm like, maybe I just go do that
Okay.
and just throw caution to the wind because I'm not a risk taker. It's been something I've been trying to work on over the last decade of just getting out of my safe cocoon. And because again, you don't get to experience more if you don't put yourself out there. And
That's true.
so that's how I ended up at Berkeley. I talked to
Interesting.
some of the staff there, Jen and other people, and I'm like, okay, this would work. It's 20 minutes away. I didn't know what I was saying yes to, but I
Hmm.
had the courage to go say yes to it.
Out here, here. And I think, the reason I started off with that question was, as you're talking, I thought about that was a very unique. I mean, I've been in a lot of communities and organizations throughout my life. There's something really special about the Berkeley Executive Coaching community and how connected we all are. And I thought, somebody like you with the caliber of connections that you have could have gone anywhere. Yeah, you could have gone to Columbia, you could have gone to, I mean, who knows? There's so many
Yeah,
different programs, right? And so I get that it's close to home, sure.
sure.
But it's so it's one thing to just to go and to go through the course. It was a 10-day in-person course, and I flew from Texas to go there, a little
Yeah.
different. But what's kept you connected? I mean, what is it about what that did for you, either professionally or personally, right? Receiving that coaching experience that's kept you connected either to the community or connected to coaching.
Yeah, I think, that the 10 days was interesting, right? Because it's just for people to understand, like it's 10 days locked in the faculty club with a group of people,
Strangers.
strangers that within the first 3 hours you're there, you're being asked to expose your soul to them. And and there's a handful of stories around that, which
Mhm.
was like crazy. And
We're not at liberty to share.
we're not at liberty to share. And I, but it was interesting to me as I'm in there. Like I was slowly each day being, if I wanted to participate, if I wanted to honor my cohort,
Yeah.
I had to slowly take the corporate suit off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And and of course, the Berkeley team was, we're going to figure out how to get that corporate suit off. Like they're throwing stuff. But I noticed because I'm trained in facilitation, like
Yeah.
I knew what was happening behind the scenes just as a facilitator. And I'm like, no, they're setting this up to set this up to set this
Mm.
up. When they're assigning us, remember the acting scene, like when
Yes.
you're going to take on this character, like there was a science to that.
Yeah.
And this is going to get to your question about the connection. They gave me the role in a movie that was a very emotionally challenging movie in a scene with Jane Fonda was, and I was playing Jane Fonda was the psychologist.
Mm.
And like there were other scenes my cohort had that I could have been a comedian, which would have been much easier for me. Could have I could go do that. Like I could do a funny line, I could do this, but that's somebody on the staff at Berkeley when they were going through all of us and putting us together saw
Yeah. Hmm.
he needs to work on this. And I'm in it, and the lesson that came out of it, the lesson that like really opened my heart to the Berkeley community and said, okay, I found my people.
Mm.
Um, I would say I've always been someone that would feel empathy for others. I
Mm-hmm.
could get there. I would have empathy. I wasn't someone that was really good at showing that empathy.
Interesting.
because I would jump into like problem solving mode. Like I don't have, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel bad for you. Okay, let's start fixing this.
Let's fix it. Yeah.
And not taking that space to like build a deeper connection through empathy and the role they had me play.
Hmm.
Like that's what was required.
That was
It
it.
was like you are going to find your empathy. Like you're going
Yes.
to understand what it means to not just feel it,
Yeah.
but to express
Embody
it
it.
and share it.
Mm. So interesting. You're right. So just for those that might be listening confused about how coaching and playing a role like Jane Fonda have anything to do with one another. Part of the Berkeley Executive Coaching method is to use art, to use theater. And all of us, like you mentioned, were assigned a scene from a play or a movie or some sort, and a partner, a fellow coaching
Yes.
colleague from the cohort as a partner, and we were working on the scene together over the course of those 10 days, and then it all culminated in this talent show, so to speak, where we were acting it out. Mine was Peter and I were partnered in, oh my gosh, I played Meryl Streep in that role when she was a nun.
Okay.
I can't
I
remember
don't
the name of the
remember the
movie right
movie,
now.
but yeah.
uh, Anywho, but like now that you're talking about it and reminding me that that intentionality behind putting people in roles that really force them to kind of crack open some element. I remember in mine, I was always being asked to like to get angry, like be. I was always very cool. I always prided myself and have always prided myself on being kind of calm as a cucumber. I don't get ruffled very easily. I can be intense. I'm passionate about something, but I don't get angry or upset
Oh,
or visibly flustered very much. And
good. Yeah.
so, yeah, it's good until it's not, because then I did repress a lot of those types of
Well, that's the
feelings.
downside, right?
Yeah, and I now see, after the fact, it took a couple of years actually after doing that, where I realized that, oh, that was that role where I could have really use anger to fuel a better performance, but I just didn't know how to tap into it with myself. Right. And so I think it's interesting, like to have two things you said, being a risk taker is not necessarily in your nature, but we sometimes have to hand ourselves over to a group or a system or a process that we know we will grow from, but you have
Yes.
to have some level of trust that,
Yes.
okay, I'm going to show up and I'm going to go through the steps that I need to, because I know on the other side something positive is going to come out of all of this, which is not easy to do, especially when we are at certain levels in our career, or we are a certain, era of our lives where we have been there and done so many things
Hmm.
to say, okay, yeah, let me do something I've never done before because I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I imagine it's going to be good. So,
Well, it's, and again, how intuitive of them to know which one to give me,
yeah.
or to have, or even have that whole challenge of go giving into the risk, because every day there for 10 days was like, okay, what's going to happen today? Like, what part of me am I going to have to expose? What shield am I going to lay down? Like, it's every day, like,
Yeah.
and and I when someone looking at my life, looking at my LinkedIn profile would say, wow, this person's had all these VP roles, these big companies, traveled these places. But that doesn't tell the whole story,
No.
because you can get into a cocoon, you can not take risk. And when I look back at my childhood, which we were also forced to do at Berkeley with the River of Life, and of
Yep.
which I went tremendously deeper into that exercise than what we were even given, looking for
Really?
patterns and limiting beliefs and things that have
Wow.
come out. But I look at my high school years, I didn't take any risk. I
Mm,
didn't I didn't ask a girl to go to prom, or
mm,
I didn't participate in school programs. Uh,
mm.
I didn't do like art or theater class, or like
Interesting.
I I said no to almost everything out of fear.
Mm,
Didn't know it at the time, but
yeah,
I
that was
said no.
amazing.
Like, it's funny because I write about this. And I'm like, I open my high school yearbook. Like, my only reference is my headshot.
Why, no one signed your yearbook? Oh,
So,
really?
no, I got some people sign my yearbook, but I mean, there's no reference to me like David on page 14 in this
The
club,
club and
page
the, oh,
28
wow.
did this, like this
Nothing.
photo from a pep rally.
Interesting.
Like, no, there's my headshot.
Wow. Well, I mean, since you've taken a risk to be on this podcast, I'm going to use a little bit of coaching, not because I want to coach you, but a question to maybe for those that might be listening, could be curious about. What was the fear? Like now that you've explored it, looks like you looked into it. What did you notice was holding you back from all those things?
There was just an inherent lack of self-confidence
Mm,
that, without going into a lot of detail, I mean, my childhood home environment wasn't the most supportive.
mm,
I had a very supportive father, but I had a mother who had some mental issues, and the outcome of that as a child was just a lot of unpredictability
yeah.
and a lot of putting a lot of protection up because you didn't know what you were walking into.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seemed safer to keep your head down than to
Mm,
put yourself out there. And that, I mean, I was dealing with that even all the way into Berkeley, even with all my successes in my career and growth in different areas, that doubt was still sitting behind me.
mm,
And I had a big breakthrough over the time at Berkeley with Tom Nelms was my executive coach at Berkeley.
wow.
And Tom started doing what a great coach does, and he started like peeling back the onion with some really powerful questions.
Mm,
And he would say, I here's this list of everything I've seen you've achieved, but yet here's how I see you describe yourself. And
mm,
there's a disconnect
mm-hmm.
because you're not accepting what you've done,
Yeah.
and what you've accomplished. And yeah, I mean, there's not too many times that I can remember, if any, where I'd be in a conversation with someone, an executive coach, and this time, like, he had me in tears at one point.
Mm.
But it was a very powerful breakthrough, and I remain really grateful to Tom for his
Oh, so
skill and
good.
his leaning in and working through it. So
Wow. I mean, I think what a blessing that we have had opportunity to put ourselves in situations and with people with whom that can create a container like that,
yes.
what you're describing, and
Yeah.
to
So that goes back
explore.
to the opening question, like, this is our community at Berkeley,
Yeah.
because there are other Toms over there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's this community of people that it's always going to provide us a safe space to
Yes.
be authentic and to be open and to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that travel through life and don't have that space anywhere. They don't
That's
have
so
it with
true.
their spouse, with their friends,
Yeah.
with their coworkers. Like, they've
Yeah.
always got to keep the shield up.
The shield, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's funny as you were describing this experience with Tom, you said the name of the movie now that I was representing, Doubt. It was the
Oh,
movie Doubt.
okay.
So yeah, that was the movie that came to mind.
Okay.
But the thing about it's so interesting that you're talking about this experience then, because at the time I was also in kind of in transition. I was working for Hyatt at the time in the
I
corporate.
remember you being in transition.
Yeah,
Yes.
they'd announced that they were going to eliminate our learning department. And so I was like, I'm not sure what that means for me in the company. And,
Yeah.
we were right in the smack dab in the middle of our program, as I was trying to figure out what my pivot was going to be. And if I was going to stay in the company that I wouldn't be able to do what I love doing, which was developing leaders, or would have to do something else. And so So I spent a lot of my coaching time focused on that, like what my pivot was going to be. Reba Rose was my executive coach.
Okay. Yes.
And so we spent time working through that stuff. But it wasn't until years later, literally during the pandemic, where that whole thing with repressed anger came up again through some
Okay.
chronic back pain. But I knew that as I wanted to work on this, that the one person that I could reach out to work through it was Reba. So I reached out
Yes.
to her again years after going through the whole program.
Wow, that's
Um,
great.
and I said, hey, I'm learning of some insights. And I didn't connect it to the movie scene or anything at the time, but I can see now, like, oh my gosh, all of that was kind of pushing me along. So
Yeah.
fascinating how all of this stuff has had such a profound impact on our path.
Oh, it does. And the lesson in it, Valerie, is there's many, is if we take the time to look back over our story, the
Yeah,
experiences that we've had, it is a little easier if we're intentional to detach and observe it, like as
yeah.
if we're watching ourselves in a scene of a movie and
Mm-hmm.
seeing, wow, that's interesting. Why did I think that at that time? Because
Mm-hmm.
today I can so clearly see that wasn't true.
Yeah,
Or why did I go right instead of left? What motivated me? Was there a fear there? Was there a limiting belief?
yeah,
Was there a false picture I had in my head on how something should be? And we can detach and observe and like, okay, there's a lesson, there's a lesson. I like to use the word wisdom. There's wisdom scattered across our story that we
yeah.
can extract and gain power from. And then, of course, the ultimate end game is if we can learn to detach and observe ourselves from the past, the real victory is being able to detach and observe ourselves in the moment. So
Mm,
why is this situation making me angry? Why
yeah.
is this situation, what story am I telling myself that makes me feel insecure right now?
Mm-hmm.
What fear do I have of some outcome that may never ever happen is holding me back today? Like being
Yeah.
able to detach and observe in the current moment.
That
Like that's the
self-awareness.
the perfect place to get to. So
Ooh. Well, okay. So how did you then, from this person who barely had any mentions in the yearbook and growing up, come to this part where you're now thinking about how you have developed some of those beliefs, right? Really starting to break out from some of that fear. What got you to that point? Or if you had to look back, especially specifically around maybe models or people who have supported you, like Tom and others, how did you get there?
that's a great question. That again, that's stuff I'm writing about. Like when I
We
look
have
at
to
my,
wait for the book to get you can
well,
tease it, you can tease
I
it.
won't give you the highlight, but when I look, it's an interesting process when you go back and look at your story because, and I want to focus on the career side of our stories, but when we usually tell our career story in sequential order, it's like a timeline. Like here it is on our resume, here it is on LinkedIn. Like I did
Yeah.
this, then I did this, and then I worked here and I had this title. And that story doesn't draw out what I already touched on one thing, but there's three things in our story that are always there. There's wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
there's wonder, and there's new possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And like if we can look at our story, kind of take it not sequentially, but look at it in a different way and say, who were the generous characters in our story
Mm.
that helped us? Where were the shared successes? Where were the monumental quests that we took on? And look at it as a series of here's wisdom where there were conversations. Sometimes like if I look at my career where there's been a conversation I had with an executive that would never remember that conversation. But when I look at how
Mm-hmm.
I've journeyed and where I've succeeded, like that thing has stayed with me for 20 years. Like it
Mm-hmm.
changed how I viewed the world,
Yeah.
viewed business, viewed myself.
Yeah.
And so trying to extract those nuggets and our story, that wisdom and the wonder. Yeah, it's just all of a sudden, and again, Tom kind of opened that door for me to
Yeah.
like look at my story in a more positive light, in a more
Mm,
creative light than what I was, instead of like, yeah, I just wasn't giving myself credit for what I had done.
mm,
And because I remember telling this to Tom, like, um, for whatever reason through my childhood, who knows how I got there, but I always tied pride to being egotistical.
interesting.
Like I couldn't,
Separate,
like
yeah.
that's pretty unhealthy, really. Like you should be able to have
Mm.
pride. There's a totally egotistical is a very different, it's a whole
Yeah.
different manifestation of that, right? Like it's like,
Mhm.
and I couldn't feel pride in what I had done.
Interesting. There was a story that you were telling yourself about all those things.
It's always in the stories.
Yeah, sadly. And most of the stories are not very generous stories. We are
No,
not generous guides to ourselves many
no,
times when we have those types of
we're
doubts.
not, because we have self-doubt, we compare ourselves to others,
Yeah.
we we listen to what society tells us and how they
Yeah.
label us, and all those things are just, they're not beneficial.
That's not, yeah, you're so right. It's funny. I don't know if you saw some of my latest stuff on LinkedIn, but I've been talking about how to use AI, especially when it comes to like our personality assessments and sometimes performance reviews. People use those because I'm realizing, and it took me a few years. I kind of knew when I started my own business, right? Right. That's what I ended up doing. That was the pivot that I ended up making.
Yes.
I started my own business. But I got a lot of advice from a lot of entrepreneurs who also started businesses, even coaches. And here's what you do, here's how you do it. And some of that was super helpful, right? Okay, I need to learn how to set up an LLC. Sure, I should know how to make sure that my business and my personal finances are separate and distinct. Like there are those things, but there were things about how to connect with new clients, the types of projects that I wanted to take on, all of those things. I always found myself kind of like, okay, thanks for the advice. I don't like that. I don't know if that will work for me. And it took me some time to figure out that I can actually do it in a way that I care about, that matters to
That's
me.
powerful.
And so having a company called Connect to Joy made it a mantra that, okay, I'm not finding joy here. In fact, I remember maybe about 2 years in, I spoke to my minister about this at the time. She was asking about how my work was going. And I was like, I like coaching and developing people, but I don't know if I like the whole business piece of it. I didn't get into business to set up a business. And I feel like a lot of my time and energy are being spent on business stuff.
Yes.
Maybe this isn't it for me. And had a very honest conversation about what I was struggling with. And I don't know exactly what she said to me. It wasn't like she gave me advice, but she gave me an example of something that she had decided as she was going through making a decision between staying in the marketing career path or going into ministry. And just her example, I just got that, oh, I came into this because I want to develop people, not because I wanted to develop a business. My job is to develop people, and that's okay. And I've
Yes.
been talking to a bunch of people who are in business to develop a business. So their
Yes.
stuff does not resonate for me. So
That's
as I started to,
powerful.
it's huge. It was a huge like aha
That's
moment.
your Simon Sinek why.
It was my why. And it's so funny because what that ended up looking like was, okay, what are the places where I want to develop people? Because I knew that by developing people, people would develop my business. It would happen.
Yes.
And sure enough, it happened with Berkeley because we had our coaches conference. I don't know if you remember if you went.
Yeah.
It was our very first one ever, and they were asking for speakers. And I'm like, I'm in Texas, they're in California. They're not compensating people for this coaches conference to come and speak, but that's a community that I want to develop. They've given me so much. I want to
Sure.
share. So I said yes, I went there. And it so happened I was facilitating my session, and our founder, Mark Rittenberg, Dr. Mark Rittenberg, and Mehmet Sevinch were sitting in the back of the room, not in my session, but they were meeting about something. And I
Right.
needed to borrow Mehmet for an exercise because I needed a pair. And so Mark ended up observing some of this facilitation. And afterwards, he was like, hey, you should come and be a faculty coach with us. You'd be really good
Oh,
at it. And I
wow.
was like, what? And so out of my giving of my
Yes.
time and my energy and my talent, I had received so many wonderful opportunities to partner with Berkeley on many, many great projects.
Great.
Connected even more with the community of like amazing humans like we just described.
Yes.
But it was interesting just to kind of think about how do I be more me? And AI is now helping me do that when I have a vacuum of I don't have that same, I'm not finding people maybe in my community right now sometimes to tell, like even writing a book, I'm writing a book and I'm like, how do I make this more joyful? Because everybody I'm talking to is like, you gotta have this many, you gotta do it this way, you gotta, and I'm like, oh, okay, AI, you know my personality. How can I approach this in an interesting way? So it's been
No, that's, I
fascinating.
mean, you hit on so many important points in that, Valerie, and we, so many of us are students at heart and we're hungry to learn and we have mentors and coaches and we read things, we watch things, we take things in. And what we sometimes forget is at some point when we're incorporating those things, we have to make them ours.
Yes.
They have to be ours. Like we can't, when I talk to people and again, we give people credit where credit's due. I'm not
Mhm.
saying not to, but we're all the sum of everything we've learned. But
Yes.
what makes us unique is how we've incorporated those things and have our flavor of it, which is what I heard you describing. Like,
Mhm.
this is my flavor
Yes.
of this thing. And that is unique to me
Yeah.
because and so if we, when I listen to coaches or other people say, well, they're trying to like share this great idea and they're like, well, so and so said this quote or so and so, and like, okay, but wait a minute, it's yours now. Like the stuff you're describing was something you learned 10 years ago. Like
Yes.
like it's just part of what you've incorporated, right? And
Yeah.
and and the world I was in, we used to always joke it's a long time saying, like you steal from one person, it's plagiarism. You steal for 20, it's consulting. Like
Or coaching.
yeah, coaching.
Interesting. So what's your growth edge now? Like what are you either incorporating more of yourself in your special sauce, or what are you moving towards to push the boundary a bit more?
Well, so I have a handful of goals that end up being on vision boards, and I
Mm,
meditate on them and think through them. My writing is again, um, they say when you write a book, especially a nonfiction book, to write 50,000 words, you're going to write 3 to 500,000, and that's true. So, I'm 5 chapters into what I think will be a 10 chapter book. And like you, it touched on me when you said it, like I have to write it the way I want to write it. And which means, like I have a very dear friend. She's one of the top female creators on LinkedIn.
mm,
She has like 400,000 followers or something, only like 30 years old,
mm,
and just so successful. And like she got a book deal because she has 400,000 followers. Like,
mhm.
and now, I'm not going to share her name or her book because I'm going to let her tell
Okay.
her story. But the point is, like, she wrote the book proposal, got it. Now she's going to go write the book. Well, for
Mm,
me, it's not about selling a book.
yeah.
Like, if the book sells, I'll be happy, I'll be grateful. But
When the book sells.
when the book sells, thank you, my friend. But I'm going to write the book.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to tell the story.
Yes.
And just that exercise will drive and is driving tremendous growth within me because
Mm,
concepts are evolving,
hmm.
ideas are evolving. I'm having conversations with other people like you where I get these little anecdotes and things like, oh wow, like see that is true. Like here's an
Mm,
example, or wow, it's even more than I thought it was because look
yeah.
at how Valerie did it. Like
Mm.
it's just the whole cycle of writing, and I think
Mhm.
creativity in general is just back, we talked about it earlier, like student teacher, student teacher, student
Yes.
teacher. It's the cycle you get into. So getting this written, I set goals for when the draft's complete and again, I have other issues with my writing because I don't write like people say you should write. Like you should just get everything out of your head and then go back and edit for 9 months. Like I got to edit every paragraph as I go, or it drives me crazy. It's not a good habit for me. I'm working on it. Um, but I have this perfect blend where I'm doing some teaching at Berkeley. I'm doing some coaching. I'm writing. I'm trying to get my golf handicap down. And then, have a lot of new experiences with my wife and travel and doing
Yeah.
different things. So it's just keeping things moving across a whole series of things is what feeds
Yeah.
me right now.
Yeah, what a wonderful. There's so many sources of satisfaction and fulfillment. There's no
Yes,
one thing, sounds like.
there's no one thing.
Yeah,
So,
I love
but I've
that.
had a lot of things go my way. I've created a lot of things. I've also had a lot of generous characters in my story that help my
Mhm.
situation that like it's not lost on me that my life is in a position today that I'm able to do a lot of things that other people wish they could do.
Mm,
And again, some of that I created, and other
yeah.
things I had generous characters in my story that helped open doors and give advice that helped me get where I'm at.
Thank goodness for generous characters.
Yes.
And I think you've been one even today, as we were preparing for our conversation, you gave me some wonderful advice, or not even advice, but some resources that have been helpful to you that you thought would be helpful to me in my writing process too. This podcast has been one of those instruments that I've used to write. 'Cause I noticed I
Yes.
was, I've the topic is really about connecting with other people. Not, you can't do life alone. Life is not a
No.
DIY project. It's basically the content, and it's for people who feel like they have to, that they only can rely on themselves, or very few people who they can trust. And my thing is like, no, there's a framework that you can use, a lens you can look through to be really intentional about who you bring in and at what point and for what reason.
Yes.
That's the point of the book. But as I was writing it, I was like,
Powerful.
oh my gosh, this concept, and I'm writing all the concepts, and I was feeling a bit like, okay, this is kind of wah, wah, boring. But then I noticed I would perk to life when I talked about it.
Yes.
Instead of, I would coach somebody and it would come up and I would use the concept, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this works. I need to talk about it more. So what do I do to talk more? Set up my own
There
podcast.
you go. But now, and then you'll feed into your book, and you're well on the way
There
to
you go.
writing 500,000 words to get 50,000 words for your book.
That is truth. Oh my goodness. I'm curious now too, with for you, as you've been, your career in technology has been grown quite a lot, and we have now hit another plateau. Not plateau, we've hit another step in the technology game in this world. So I'm curious about your take on how technology is supporting our connection, or how you find it detracting from connection sometimes.
Well, that's a great question because I spent 35 years in tech. So when I first got into it in the 80s, right, there was no internet, there was no social media, there was no cell phones.
What
So
technology was there in the 80s then?
yeah, there was a computer with a word processing system and no interface, no
Little
GUI.
green
Windows
blinking
Windows had just come
first.
out. So um, when I look at how it's evolved, and I've looked at big jumps in technology over the time, right? If you look at things like you look at how the iPhone changed the world, and then the Galaxy phones coming as well. But I mean, it's like all of a sudden we have computers in our hands. Like
Yeah,
that was a monumental moment, right? A
yeah,
shift.
yeah,
So much positive and so much negative in it if you don't
mm,
manage it.
yeah,
Okay. And I think in life, like so many things that have tremendous upside and benefits for us. And to get to your point, technology, the internet, social media, artificial intelligence, all these things offer tremendous benefits to us as individuals, to society,
Yeah.
to improving our health, to um, changing the way we connect across the world.
Mm.
But because of that opportunity, if we don't manage it, we don't. I heard someone say this decades ago about another technology. If we don't civilize it,
Mm.
because these new technologies can take a decade or two to civilize, like to get, because you think about even cell phones when they first came out, they weren't civilized. Like you would sit in a nice restaurant and somebody's on their phone 2 tables over talking, like that doesn't happen, right? It took
Yeah.
a decade
Yeah.
to get rid of that. So,
Hmm.
but there's so much thrown at us.
Yeah.
Society or companies are not going to manage the risk for us. We
Mm.
have to manage, we have to set those timers on our iPhone to say we're only going to spend 30 minutes a day max on all social
Mm.
media sites. Like we're done. If I
Mm.
look at LinkedIn, I look at Instagram, I look at something else, I'm done.
Yeah.
Right? We have to decide if we have 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes in a waiting room or somewhere else, instead of picking up our phone and scrolling, like, am I going to listen to a master class? Am I going to listen to a podcast of Valerie teaching me some
Mhm.
things I didn't know? Like,
Mhm.
where are we going to turn?
Yeah.
What are we going to put into ourselves in
Yeah.
these times? Because what's clear, we struggle to just be, to just like sit in this waiting room for 15 minutes and just quiet our mind, just relax, just wait. That's hard to do. So we pick up our phone. Well,
Yeah.
okay, if we're going to pick up our phone, what are we going to do? Are we going to do something that's going to make us smarter?
Yes.
Are we going to look at stuff that's going to bring us peace? Are we going to look at things that are going to challenge us to improve? We get to decide,
Mm-hmm.
because the companies that feed us this stuff's not going to decide it for
No.
us.
No. But I think what you're saying is really, you can apply that same philosophy to living, right? To life,
Yes,
that
exactly.
we have to manage it ourselves. We manage
Yeah,
what we watch, what we spend our time on, what we eat, who we surround ourselves with, the activities that bring us life. And I think the discipline that you're pointing to is being so self-aware and discerning to know, okay, if I'm going to turn to something, I'm going to turn to something that's going to be fulfilling to me, right? I think going back to my mantra of connecting to joy is that just paying attention now to what, hey, is this bringing me joy? Is this bringing me further away from it or closer to it? And
yes,
and we, when you talk about things like even the news today, I know that there's news out there that just heavy, bring me down. But I know if I need to stay aware, I look for sources of news that will give it to me with a little twist. So I'll watch, the Daily Show with Jon Stewart and all his
yes.
and his crew. I'll listen
Love it.
to some comedians that have a specific take on something that's going on because I know that I need some of that medicine with some with a
Oh,
spoonful of sugar,
we're
right?
like-minded that way. Yeah,
Oh gosh. But you
yeah,
meditate, you said too, right? So it sounds
yes,
like you have practices that help you to be more at ease with being, right? What else are you
yeah.
doing or how is that supporting your ability to be when you have so much input?
It's again, there's a combination of things. There's an executive coach um, that I followed. I've gotten to know him a little bit, but his name's Jerry Colonna. And he's wrote a couple of books. Reboot is his most famous one, and he's known as like the CEO whisperer. So most of
Mm,
his coaching has been with startup CEOs and people that have became big time over time, and just
yeah.
dealing with their challenges. And I may not get his quote perfectly right, but he has three or four key coaching questions that are so powerful. One of them is this discussion is to ask ourselves, like, how have I been complicit in creating the situation I don't want?
Woo! How have I been complicit in creating the situation I don't want?
Yes. Now, my quote may not be perfect, but you get it.
I
And
get
I
it.
highly recommend people, follow Jerry and even consider his book Reboot. But, when we look at it, when we look at a list of our goals on one hand, and then on the other hand, we get the notifications from our iPhone of how many hours we've spent scrolling, there's a question to ask ourselves, right? Like, why, what am I doing?
Oh my.
And because, I said something earlier, like these companies, and I worked for one, I worked for Google, but Google, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, not only are they not going to help us manage these things, they're actually motivated financially to keep us embedded in their system.
Yes.
And so they're actually working against us.
Yep.
And so the only path out is our own self motivation and discipline and redirecting into things that are going to help us achieve our goals.
Wow. I just read this book. Oh my gosh, what's the name of the book? I'll put it in the show notes. Oh, I have a little tickle in my throat. Excuse
Okay.
I'll have to edit that out.
Okay, take a second.
Second. Interesting.
You want to grab something to drink?
I have some here. Hang on a second.
Okay.
La 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 la. Okay. I don't remember the name of the book, so I'll have to put it in the show notes. But one of the things they talked about was how they were studying how casinos cooked people's attention and time,
Yes.
and they were bringing a lot of those techniques and that framework and that knowledge
Wow.
into creating applications, in creating not just games, but all the social media apps that we do, the scrolling, the whole idea of reels, for example,
Yes.
mimicking some of the slot machine technology. Like, it was fascinating. And so I think to your point is we have to be really honest with ourselves about how we're being complicit, right? To answer that question,
Yes.
what are the ways in which we're giving away our power, we're giving away our influence, what are we doing, what are we not taking responsibility over, right?
Yes.
And I think your reflection kind of provokes a bit of that for us, because I choose to have meaningful conversations everywhere I go. I hate small talk. I'm an extrovert and I love connecting with people. I get a lot of energy, but there's nothing worse than more draining than being around someone that just wants to stay on the surface. And so
Yes.
I will welcome any introverts that want to have meaningful conversation. I might be distracted by other people, but I'll have
Right.
meaningful
No,
conversation.
absolutely.
But
That
I think
my somewhere my wife Robin, her got a tickle on the back of her neck because she'll say that all the time. Like, is it like going to an event or party? Like, it's going to be small talk. I don't want to
right. Yeah,
go.
what's the point? But and I think one of the things I also appreciate about you and how you have been using social media, for example, at least what I see on LinkedIn, that's really the only
Yeah.
time that I've noticed
That's
it.
all I really use. So,
Okay. But you ask people to engage in really interesting dialogue and conversation. Um, I like to post things, but I don't want to spend a lot of time in comments necessarily. But some of the things that you post does compel me, like, oh, this is interesting.
yeah.
I hadn't thought about that, right? Like you'd asked, I think in one of the ones that I engaged you in, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes too,
Okay.
was where you had asked people about what kind of life experiences led you to, I can't remember exactly how you posed the question. You remember this?
I
But
don't remember it now.
it just had me reflect on like, oh, well, when I traveled and I did this and I met these people, and this is kind of how my view of the world was developed. But it was
Oh,
so
yes. Yeah.
engaging to think about how you took the time to ask a question that would help us self-reflect, not because you were trying to make some kind of uh, point, or you weren't trying to, it wasn't something provocative and contentious. It was
No.
simply a moment of self-reflection that was actually quite pleasant. That was one of those connect to joy with myself moments. I'm like,
Oh,
so cool to
well,
think
thank you for
about.
saying that. I think, there's the journey on LinkedIn. I mean, again, it's whatever someone's goal is, right? Some people, like my friend I mentioned that has 400,000 followers, and she's worked her tail off. Her and her partner, he's got even more followers. Um, and they had a goal. They have a goal to enrich people's lives. They have a goal to help other people learn how to build their following. But
Yeah.
they also had a goal to get out of corporate America and just
Mm,
run this business, and they both
yeah.
did that. And
Yeah.
um, but it's I had to look at it myself, like, okay, if I'm wanting to write this book, how much of my attention do I want to put on posting on LinkedIn? Like, do I want to do this every day? Do I want to start doing video? Do I want to start doing,
Yeah.
and am I going to get caught into what everybody in social media gets? Like, how many people are liking it? How many people are responding? How many, right? And there was a
Yeah.
whole of asking myself again, where am I being complicit? Like, I want to post what I want to say, and
Yeah.
however people respond to it, that's how they respond to it.
Yes. Yes.
And now I didn't get to that overnight. I had to work through it because
Yeah.
I have to stay. It's funny, Valerie. So many of us, and we know people this way. Well, we'll say, well, they want to do this, they want to accomplish that, they want to do this, and the question they don't really ask themselves is like, do I like the idea of it, or do I
Hmm.
really want to do it?
Yes.
And
Mm.
at some point we gotta separate what we like the idea of, because when we talk about stuff we just like the idea of, it makes us feel like our dreams alive and we're making progress, but we're going nowhere. We're
Yeah, it's
just
like an ego
talking
trip.
about this thing but at some point you got to do the work. I mean, it's like
But here's the thing, I think that's why this idea of I mentioned using AI, or this mantra for connecting to joy, is
yes,
do work that's pleasurable, do work that's meaningful. I literally had a coaching conversation today with someone that was wanting one of their team members to have more drive and more ambition. And I was like, well, money is not going to be, depending on certain tasks, right? Because I remember Daniel Pink in his book Drive talks
yes,
about what motivates people. And he's like, when you're talking about rote activity, sure, you can bump up the money and
yeah,
that could do it. But when you're talking about creative or deeply cognitive work and your innovative work, you need to think about purpose, you need to think about autonomy, you need to think about mastery. And
yes,
so I'm finding myself constantly playing the game with myself, like, okay, am I doing this? Is there a purpose? Do I have a really, like, I think what you're saying too is that is this something that's really gonna fulfill my purpose?
yes,
Um, do I have the autonomy to do it in a way that's meaningful to me, that's beneficial to me, that's not going to
yes,
compromise my other commitments? And then am I able to use my skills and talents and gifts? Am I mastering what I already know how to do? Is this going to
yes,
amplify that even more? And so I mean, I'll tell you this, the book that I'm writing, I'm about 5 chapters into, and I'm like, I kind of wish this was it. Like, I don't know, because part of me was like, I think I have the concept, I have the framework, I wrote all the things I need to about it, but part of me has been like, I probably need to add a little bit more about this and plump it out here a little bit. But then I think about like, I don't really care, because I just wanted to be able to hand somebody this concept without having to do a whole coaching session and go read chapter 7.
you're bouncing, you're It's interesting. I'd mentioned you the book, the Creative Act.
Yeah.
Um, the way he wrote that book may resonate with you
Really? Okay.
because you could just say, here's chapter 7.
Yeah.
Like it stands on its own.
Yes.
Chapter 4 stands on. I mean, that is one
Mm.
way to write a book, just saying these are a series
Yeah.
of basically lessons,
Yeah.
and they each stand on their own. You'll reference them however you want. And I think the I don't want to lose the 3 questions you ask yourself, like purpose and uh,
Mastery and autonomy.
autonomy and mastery. And I don't know if you follow Dr. Scott Galloway.
Yeah,
He
yeah, I do.
he brilliant man, and he talks about like one thing that's more important than following your passion is actually doing what you're great at.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to find success at the world, you need to find what you're really, really good at, better
Yes.
than most other people,
Yes.
and go do that.
Yes. 100%.
The mastery
100%.
is, I mean, you can't have that. The odds of you being really, really good at something and hating it are pretty small. So,
Well, and I think we also have, we have lived in cultures where we have promoted and we have compensated people for doing a good job. And so any of us that are driven by, hey, attaboy, attagirl, good job, getting recognized, right, achieving some level of success because of the things that we do, I think if we're honest with ourselves and are able to answer the question, like you were saying, is this something that I'm doing because I'm actually intrinsically motivated, like I love and I feel passion and
yes.
purpose around it? Or is it because I'm getting all this external validation
Oh
for
my
it?
gosh, Valerie, you're hitting on something that comes up with so many coaching sessions
Oof.
for me. That I do. Validation, I just had this conversation with someone the other day. Validation is a really interesting word if you peel it back, because
Hmm.
on one side, we live in a world where unfortunately so many people do not receive validation, positive validation for little things. And,
Yeah.
one of the things that I love in my life that just comes natural to me, like I will quickly validate complete strangers when I see them doing something, experiencing something
Yeah.
like I just want to let them know I see you. I
Mm,
know you're like doing something that's kind of a big deal for you. Like I want to
mm,
give that validation. So that's one side of the word. At the
yeah.
same time, the healthiest place for us to be is to reduce our need for validation from outside sources. Because when you give the world the power to validate you,
Mm,
they can take it or give it at any time. Like it's
yeah.
like a roller coaster. And
Yeah.
so it's it's kind of like, and this goes back to my coaching with Tom, that was like being able to like validate myself.
Yourself.
And so I will be grateful for validation I receive from outside sources. I'm grateful for it,
Yeah.
but I'm working hard every day to like, I don't need it. I
Yes.
don't need the likes on social media. I don't need, and again, all of these growth things we're talking about, they're journeys, right? They're not
Yeah.
destinations. We never
Mhm.
get to the end.
No. No.
Um,
Ah,
so yeah,
found. Yeah, and we could probably do a second episode just
I
on
I'll
that
I'm
piece.
available anytime you want to do
Okay.
something, my
Oh,
friend.
oh,
No, I love I'm just kind of basking in like how we connected at Berkeley 8 years ago.
yes.
Yeah. The only
Same.
thing I'm missing is the ability to hug you right now.
Oh, virtual hug. Well, next time I'm in the Bay Area, we have to make sure we connect in
I
person.
would love that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this has been so lovely. And I think in a testament to connecting with those that we see virtually intentionally,
Yes.
because there, like I said, there was that moment of, oh wow, this is some really cool stuff that David is having me think about, and to another one that said, and I think I put it in the comment, hey, I should have you on my podcast or
Yes, you
something,
did.
which I was like, okay, I haven't talked to David in years. I
Yeah,
don't
you
didn't have
threw
anything to
yourself
talk
out there
about
right there, like
very publicly. But again,
yeah,
I'm following my intuition, connecting to joy and all that. And I think I'm just so grateful that you and I have had the presence of mind. I think the authenticity and transparency to be able to just receive and to share everything
yes,
that we have over the last hour and beyond, right? That
yeah.
it hasn't been like trying to play a role with you or vice versa. I think
Oh
that this
no,
has
this
been,
could not have been more authentic discussion for me. And
yeah.
I know it's interesting through the years. What I've learned is if I'm the only one giving at the end of the conversation, I feel drained. But
Yeah.
when it's this free flowing, authentic, we're just being real with each other. I'm getting fed as much as I'm
Yes.
giving, and like I leave charged up, and that's how I feel right
Mm.
now. So
Well, let's leave on
yeah,
a high note.
yeah.
Because any moment now, I'm going to start asking for
I,
stuff. Just take it. Just
well, it's
take
like
it.
I joke with people like I need to stop soon because I'm a military veteran and I coached football 13 years. So at any time, anything can come out of my mouth.
Oh
So
boy. You did really well today. You really held yourself in check
thank you.
in the most authentic way possible.
There you go.
David has been such a treat. Thank you so very much
Thank
for
you for having me.
and your energy and your transparency with everything we've talked about today.
Great. Thank you, Valerie. Have a good day.
Yay.
Bye.
Well, for everybody that's been tuning into this episode, thank you once again for being a part of the Circle of Hope and listening into the conversation with David and me. Stay tuned for the next episode. Have a wonderful rest of the day, everyone. Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Circle of Hope. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, and share with someone in your circle. And if you're curious about the upcoming book, visit valeriehope.com for updates and extras. Until then, stay connected.